are using your lobby and the money behind it and the kids to try to take away my Second Amendment rights. You don't have anything to say for yourself? He's a coward. He can't say one word because he can't defend his stance, because there is no defense for taking away guns.
Okay, now that behavior against a then 18-year-old is disgusting in and of itself. But unearthed Facebook posts from 1 year earlier showed her agreeing with comments that the Parkland school massacre was a false flag planned shooting. And while she demanded answers from David Hogg in 2019, last night, a local news crew was escorted out of a town hall with Green after a reporter tried to ask her about her internet posts. Now again, this woman has been elected to the United States Congress. Only 12,000 people have ever served in that capacity in the entire history of the United States as a republic. And she was elected by a nearly 50% margin last November, which either means that a plastic doll named Satan Beelzebub could win in a Republican district as long as it's got an R next to its name, or her constituents think her views are A-OK, that this is what they affirmatively want representing them in Washington. But the real question is for the Republican minority leader in the House, Kevin McCarthy. Is this what he wants? Why would you take someone like this with these views, particularly on school shootings, who would treat an 18-year-old kid like that and put her on the House Education Committee? Well, we'd love to ask Mr. McCarthy, but he's not even in D.C. tonight. He's down in Florida, where he spent today meeting with his apparently not-so-former boss, the retired Florida MAGA cult leader who once labeled Green a future Republican star. A spokesman for McCarthy told Axios that Green's unearthed comments are deeply disturbing and that he'd have a conversation with her. Okay. But while Republicans remain conspicuously silent about the QAnon caucus extremist in their midst, and by the way, she's only one of several of them in the GOP House caucus, today, Speaker Nancy Pelosi torched Republican leadership, meaning you, Kevin McCarthy, if you're watching the TV, for overlooking Green's past comments when handing out her committee assignment.
Assigning her to the Education Committee when she has mocked the killing of little children at Sandy Hook Elementary School, when she has mocked the killing of teenagers in high school at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. What could they be thinking, or is thinking too generous a word for what they might be doing? It's absolutely appalling.
Joining me now is David Hogg, co-founder of March for Our Lives. David survived the 2018 Parkland school shooting, which killed 17 people. And first of all, David, I have to ask, how are you? How is your family? I've not seen you in person since 2018, so how are you?
You know, just like, millions of other young people across the country trying to get through school online right now. And it's a challenge, but we're doing it. And sadly, our generation has to continue to persevere because of incompetent government leadership, whether it be because of gun violence happening that easily could have been prevented, or an out-of-control pandemic that is more than, basically any other developed country in the world per capita.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sad to me that you guys have had to take up this activism on behalf of all of us, given what all of you faced. So I got to ask you, what do you make of the fact that somebody like this, who denies that what happened to you and your friends happened at all, thinks it was some sort of false flag because people want to go and black helicopter her guns, winds up on the House Education and Labor Committee? Let me read you what the chairman of that committee said. His name is Representative Robert Scott. He said House Republicans made this appointment, and Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy must explain how someone with this background represents the Republican Party on education issues. He's sending a clear message to students, parents, and educators about the views of the Republican. He's sending a message to people like you. What do you make of the fact that she landed that plum assignment?
I think it's absolutely horrific. And the only person that I blame for it more than anything is Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who was in Florida, frolicking around with Trump today as one of his Congress people that he has a large amount of control over, continued to peddle these conspiracy theories that school shootings don't happen, that laser beams came down from space and started wildfires in California, and incredibly just, horrific and ridiculous conspiracies. So what do I make of it? I think it's disgusting. And I'm calling on every single Republican, especially people like my father, who was a former Republican. I know not all of them stand behind this, but you need to come out and say that. Call on Leader McCarthy to come out and condemn the actions of Marjorie Taylor Greene and prove that you actually are able to put politics aside and work towards unity. Because if there's anything we should be able to unify around, it's the fact that our children should not be dying in our schools, they should not be dying in our communities, and they should not be dying, period, from a preventable issue like gun violence in the United States that takes so many. One of the things that frustrates me most, Joy, more than anything, is the fact that the attention that needs to be brought here are to the communities that never get attention about gun violence that happens on a daily basis as a result of systemic racism in this country. What pisses me off about this is the fact that the attention is being brought to Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it's not being brought to the fact that there are millions of parents across this country that have to have an empty bedroom that is permanently left empty and untouched since the day that their child died from an absolutely preventable issue such as gun violence. It is on leaders like Kevin McCarthy and so many others to act and bring this country together around something that we should all be able to agree on, which is the safety of our children, both inside and outside of our school, no matter their zip code or how many figures are in their parents' bank account.
And you talk about, your dad being a former Republican. And, I think about the state of Florida, where I did live for 14 years. I didn't live that far from Parkland, to be honest with you. And, Florida is run by Republicans. Broward County isn't where the county that you lived in, but the Florida is. You've got Marco Rubio there. You've got Rick Scott. You've got people like Ron DeSantis. They have been silent in the face of the NRA. They feel to me like they didn't really react that much to what happened to you because of these fears of the NRA. Do you get the sense when talking to your dad, or does he get the sense, if you've asked him, is this what Republicans want? Is this conspiracy theorizing, this Marjorie Taylor Greene style politics? Is this what most Republicans believe in? Do you think that it's morphed, or do you think that these people are being sort of imposed on the party?
I can't speak for all Republicans, but I can certainly say that this is something that my father does not believe in, and it's the reason why he left the party, right after the shooting at my high school, because he believes, as a former law enforcement officer, he knows from investigations of shootings that these gun laws do work, that having a magazine reduction enables law enforcement to take care of the situation much more easily than somebody with a 100-round magazine or something like 30 rounds. It's ridiculous that it's this way. I think that there's a lot of, frankly, generalizations that are going around about Republicans right now, but honestly, it's understandable considering the silence. And if they aren't happy with that, my message to Kevin McCarthy is to speak out on it and prove that you actually are not going to stand for someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who believes that school shootings didn't happen. And with that, I'll also say that we need people in this fight with us. And if you're interested, you can text RESIGN to 954-954. That's RESIGN to 954-954 to sign a petition calling for Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation.
Yeah, they did take them a long time to get rid of Steve King and take him off committee assignments, so that sometimes they're a little slow on the uptake. I do have to ask you, and I hate to send you back to that moment in 2019, but, you're being followed down the street. At this time, she wasn't a member of Congress. It's just some lady who's following you with a camera, who's basically making it clear she's got guns and that this is what she's about. Can you just sort of take us to what did you think when this person sort of started following you?
To be completely honest with you, this is something that happens very often. It's just that this time they were dumb enough to post it on YouTube and then actually got elected to Congress, so it became newsworthy. There are so many instances like this that are far worse and never make it on the news because I refuse to talk about them to give these people a platform, which I was hoping would avoid someone like her from ever getting into a position of power. But clearly that was not the case. And I can tell you as well, more than anything, what I was thinking about was the safety of our staff and my friends that were around me, most of whom were under the age of 20. That she's saying that I'm a coward, but she's the one attacking, at the time, teenager with a gun and basically indirectly threatening to kill him by saying that I have a concealed carry permit, right? She needs to realize that is a direct threat to us. What are you saying to gun violence survivors when you say that? It's a threat. It's intimidation, and we're never going to let it stop us.
Well, I have to tell you, David Hogg, this country will be far better off. Florida will be far better off if people like you start getting elected as opposed to this person. So I want to thank you for your activism, for your intersectionalism, which I think is so important because you and the other Parkland young people always keep that in the forefront. I personally appreciate that a lot. So I just want to thank you. Thank you for spending some time with us this evening, and be safe.
Yeah, and there's one last thing I just wanted to say thank you to people like S.E. Cuff and others who are Republicans and have stood up and renounced their NRA membership and stood against people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. We need more people with them to prove that not all Republicans are like this, because that's why those generalizations happen. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Indeed. And by the way, let's all remind ourselves, the NRA, they went bankrupt. And they didn't go bankrupt because politicians stood up to them. As you just said, it's because people who are not in politics stood up to them, including yourself. David Hogg, thank you very much. Truly appreciate you.